a lot of connections that have a lot of redundancy in their structure. And we feel that going up that high, though we have to pay attention to, we don't think is impossible. But we don't like going much higher than that. And I would say that anything over 10 feet is sort of an exception to the rule. Most of our homes are 10 feet and below.
Great question, Legend. And I think with that, we're going to continue on with the presentation.
So this story I used to think was true for a long time. And the reason why I tell you this story is because I want you to sort of have the mindset that hopefully this story provokes when you start designing. And I try and keep this mindset when I design and when I build, because it's really important and it's very easy to get caught up in technology. Go ahead. Next. So you've all heard of the astronaut pen, I hope, and if you haven't, the story goes that during the Apollo the Apollo missions, the astronauts realized that ballpoint pens didn't work in space because of the gravity, the zero gravity. Ballpoint pens work basically on a simple gravity principle that the ink runs downhill. But in space, there's no gravity and there's no hill for the ink to run down. So NASA spent thousands and millions and trillions of dollars, so the story goes, to invent a pen that would work in space. And after they all decided they would do this, and after they invented it and it worked, they had a big party. And, this is the height of the Cold War. Somebody asked, well, what do the Russians do? Next slide. They use pencils. And I think that it's really important to understand that how simple that is. Now, that story is not particularly totally true, but I think it proves a point to us to sort of be real careful about how we use technology, and that we use the right and appropriate technology for the problem at hand. Go to the next slide, Grace. So sometimes the cutting edge, state of the art, the latest and greatest is not so. Simple technology, idea, thought, materials, or methods is the best, because the goal is not the process but the product. Oftentimes, go ahead, Grace, next slide. We get into seeing that there's a great new product that's going to save all of us, and it's going to save all of us time and money and energy and all of those things. And we often forget about those tried and true, tested over generations and over long periods of time, methods and materials that seem to have worked. And this is where I was talking about where I was going to contradict myself about houses that are built better or buildings that are built better. I think we're running into a real problem with the way that we build buildings today, because we're forgetting the basic principles of how do you keep a building dry, how do you keep a building well ventilated, and some of those issues get into materials, get into detailing, get into labor. So they cover a wide range of issues that we deal with every day when we build buildings. And affordability always is the the elephant in the room, and so we're going to talk a little bit about this. So this is something you all should be pretty familiar with. This is a pretty typical high school or any kind of school hallway, and it has a lot of the same sort of similar components that everybody in their schools have. It's got lockers, it's got vinyl tile flooring, it's got baked tile walls, it's got some kind of ceiling that I can't really tell what it is, probably a drop ceiling, fluorescent lights, it's got everything that you would sort of normally see in any other building. And please interrupt me if you guys have any questions. I should have said that. This is not me just standing up here talking. I want this to be a dialogue. So go to the next slide, Grace. So all of these things that we put in the building, from lighting, air conditioning, all the materials, all the equipment, the finishes, the paints, the glues that hold the floor down, all of those things are made from something else, right? And what's happening these days is that we're starting to use more and more man-made products, or products that we sort of make from chemicals, in part because it's cheaper than using natural products, and they last longer, and there's an upside to those materials, but we're just beginning to understand the downside. We're starting to understand that those materials break down, and they give off gas, and they give off fumes, and when we don't have a well-ventilated place, if you see any windows in this hallway, there could be trouble. And not trouble like you're going to choke in the hallway and crash out, but over time, breathing in, bad air is not good for anybody. And the other really big issue that we run into, probably even more, is mold. And after the storm, and I'm sure you guys have run into it after storms that have passed through Broward County, is that mold grows pretty quickly, and it'll make you sicker than most anything will, and you can't even see it sometimes. And that's in part because our buildings have a hard time drying out, and if we get water in a place where it's warm and it's dark, you have the perfect, the perfect environment for mold to grow. So those are all the things that we are beginning to start to look at and have a better understanding about, so that we start building our buildings a lot better, and will sustain a lot longer, and won't make any of us sick by using them. Go to the next slide. So I can't read this list, but and you probably can't either. I'll read it from my computer. Most of the things that we put in the buildings that we tend to sort of see problems with come from a chemical called polyvinyl chloride, or better known as PVC, or just vinyl. And we use vinyl for a lot of things. There's vinyl all over your classroom right now. Probably the seats that you're sitting in. Probably most of the plastic things that are in the room are made of some sort of petrochemical and some sort of vinyl process. And in buildings, we use it for pipes. We use it for siding, for waterproofing, for floors, for doors, for you name it, for carpet, everything. It's a bad chemical. And it's really scary to think that we have so much of it that now we're sort of learning how to not use it and to use alternative products. But it's going to take a long time to get rid of what's already out there and to stop using what's already being manufactured. And there's other chemicals that get put into buildings, but the PVC and the vinyl is really the big one. And there's a handful of other ones like heavy metals, mercury, lead, all of those things. And the other real big chemical that we have to watch out for is formaldehyde, and that's what was making everybody sick in the FEMA trailers, because we use formaldehyde a lot in the making of plywood and pressboard and a lot of material that we use to make countertops and cabinets and tabletops, and that material slowly kind of leaches out in the form of gas, and if you don't have good ventilation, it is what you breathe. My feeling is that we shouldn't have it in any of our materials to begin with, and that should be the standard of care for the type of buildings that we make. And that's going to take a long time to change, but if we start acting now, I think it will change a lot faster than